How's it going, you guys? So today's going to be a little bit of a different video. I wanted to try something different because it's something that I don't think a lot of people know that I really like personally, and that's Magic the Gathering. Now I'm going to be going through one of my favorite decks that I personally play. Mind you, I don't play competitive Magic, I just play with my friends and stuff. So our decks, I would say, are slightly under CEDH, so slightly under professional level. But we're going to be talking about one of my favorite decks that I've made, and that is borborygmos, the Enraged. So he's a land matters deck. Basically, so he's a 7/6 with trample for 8, for 4 colorless, 2 red, 2 green. Has trample. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you reveal the top 3 cards of your library, put all land cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest in the graveyard. The main part that he's built around, though, is the discard a land, he deals 3 damage to a creature or player. Now, like I said, he is a land matters deck. So we run... I've been kind of varying my lands for this deck because it's inconsistent sometimes, but it's also very consistent most of the time. I'd say it's like a 70-30, 70% being it rocks all the time. Now we're going to start with the less fun stuff first. So I run 16 forests, I run 13 mountains, and then I run 6 non-basics. So I run Rockfall Vale, Rural Guildgate, Myriad Landscape, Command Tower, Rugged Highlands, and Slagwood Bridge. Now, I don't have to run any of these cards here. They just help just in case I'm only getting one of my basics at a time. Myriad Landscape, in my opinion, is one of the most busted lands for a landfall deck. Pay 1, get a trigger. If you have something that untaps a permanent, you can untap it, get those 2 extra, you're getting 3 landfall triggers back to back to back. Now we'll go with the Planeswalkers next. So we have Koth, Fire of Resistance, 4 loyalty, +2, search library for a mountain, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Basic, you know, getting land in the hand to do borborygmos' ability. His -3 deals damage equal to the number of mountains you control to a target creature. Still good slight removal. His third, his ultimate, as most people call them, his -7, you get an emblem with whenever a mountain enters, it deals 4 damage to any target. So it's really good for small target removal. Good land search, even if he's not around for very long, if you just need that extra land. Probably the biggest Planeswalker that I have is Renin 7, for 3 and 2 green, 5 loyalty. You reveal the top 4 cards of your library, put all land cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest in the graveyard. That's his +1. So it's a very basic ability, but it's super helpful. His 0, you just dump all your lands from your hand onto the board if you need to. If you got a bunch of landfall stuff, just get all those triggers. His -3, I personally don't ever do. Haven't really found a use for it just yet. You create a Tree Folk. His power and toughness equals the number of land you control. Mind you, landfall deck, land matters deck, you're gonna have a lot of lands, so you're gonna be creating 7/7s and 8/8 creatures repeatedly, if you decide to go with that route. But his -8 is probably the best thing that Renin 7 offers. the -8, you return all permanents from your graveyard to your hand, and you get an emblem of no maximum hand size. So borborygmos wants you to have lands in your hand, so you're dumping your land and dumping your land, doing his ability to do the damage and destroy creatures and whatnot. Get that -8, put all that land back in your hand, do it all over again. Again, Renin 7, probably the star planeswalker of this deck. We'll go with the artifacts next. Mind you, I didn't plan this ahead really. I wrote down a couple things, but so we'll go with the really basic stuff, not complicated. You run your basic Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Swiftfoot Boots, Gruul Cluestone, mana, haste, hexproof, and a card. It's pretty self-explanatory for. We do have 8 other artifacts though that are a little bit more in depth. I would say probably from least to worst, we'll go Boots of Speed. Again, just need that haste for our big monstrous creatures. Silver Shroud costume, 2 colorless, 3 equip, creature can't be blocked. You attach it to a creature when it enters the battlefield. It's just protection mostly, for that end of turn, but it's easy to get borborygmos and some of the creatures that we have in the deck through, just in case borborygmos does get shut down for his normal game plan. Campfire, you can probably replace it if you wanted to. You can place a lot of these cards. Campfire, I think, is just really helpful because if you don't need it right away, just gain that life. But borborygmos, I've learned, has become almost an on-kill site commander in my group. So he's going from 8 to 10 to 12, and sometimes up to 20 mana just to cast him. So the Campfires pay 2, tap, exile it, put borborygmos in your hand, and you're only casting for that 8. Super helpful in a pinch. We'll go the Elsewhere Flask. Now this is a very changeable card, I think, and it combos well with this card, which we'll get to in a second. Elsewhere Flask enters, you draw a card, sacrifice it, choose basic land type, and then each land becomes that type. So if you need extra forests or whatever, blow it up, all your mountains are now forests until the end of turn. Super helpful card. Conduit of Worlds, again, a super helpful card. You can play lands from the graveyard, choose target non-land permanent card in your graveyard. If you haven't cast a spell this turn, you can cast it. If you do, you can't cast an additional spell. That doesn't really matter. It does help if, like, you put, like, Renin 7 in the graveyard after it's been ultimated with, you could do it again. Super helpful in a pinch. You can play lands from the graveyard. Honestly, what more do you want, really? Now for the kind of, I'd say, douchey cards. Storm Cauldron. During each player's turn, that player may play an additional land. Whenever that land is tapped, it returns the land to the hand. So that's super, super good with borborygmos, because I just cast him for 8, put all that land in my hand, borborygmos comes out, I now have 8 land that I can just drop and do a bunch of big damage. Blackblade Reforged, super, super good land artifact in any land-based deck, I think. Equipped creature gets 1/1 for each land you control. Equipped creature for 3. Equipped legendary creature for 3, sorry, or equipped for 7. Granted, this is only going to be used if you need that last little bit of damage to get borborygmos through, just to deal that commander damage. Super helpful artifact, but one of the win cons of this deck is the Grafted Exoskeleton. Gives creature +2/+2 and infect. Whenever it becomes unattached from the permanent, sacrifice the permanent. So for those of you who don't understand how this works, um, Infect works on if it deals damage to a creature, it deals damage in the form of a -1/-1 counter and 2 players in poison counters. Now you only need 10 poison counters to lose the game. But some people would say it doesn't work because with borborygmos you're going to be dropping those lands, and it does in fact work. Because right on borborygmos' card it says he deals the damage himself, not deals 3 damage or whatever. But super good win con if you need it. Now we'll go to the instance, which I have 6 of. Now I will get back to that small combo that I had showed you. So if you have Elsewhere Flask and you play Barrel Down Sokuzen, you can return any number of mountains you control to their owner's hand, and then it deals damage equal to twice that. So what you do is you have Elsewhere Flask, you crack it and call Mountain, and this will get exiled or whatever, but all of your land is now mountains, so you're returning 8 mountains to your hand, is doing 16 damage to a target creature, and then with that you now have all your lands in your hand, so now you're just gonna borborygmos everything else. I have Fog just for a little bit of extra protection. Super good card, probably goes in almost every green deck that I play. Starstorm deals X damage to each creature, so in a land deck, you know you're gonna have a bunch of lands, so you're just gonna be, that X is just going to be huge every single time. So, and you can cycle it for a card if you need. Turn to Earth. For 1, choose up to 3 target cards in your graveyard. The owner shuffles into the library and you gain 2 life. This is just good for when I need, like, somebody takes out the exoskeleton, I can shuffle it back in and potentially get it again. Now I have, I'm sorry, I only have 5 instants. The last one is Roiling Regrowth. Sacrifice lands to your library for 2 basic lands, put them on the battlefield tapped and shuffle for 3. Super handy, basically Myriad Landscape, but a sorcery. Or an instant, I'm sorry. Then I have this dual, it's both sorcery and instant. Survive. Each player shuffles the graveyard into the library. This is just good to get your lands back into your deck so you can search them again. And then Struggle deals damage to target creature equal to the number of lands you control. Just removal. Nothing huge. Now I don't have a lot of removal in this deck. Most of the removal comes from the red side dealing damage and stuff like that. But for sorceries, I have 13 of them. And in a land-based deck, you're going to want a lot of searching for your lands and everything. So you need to have a lot of very good ways to get those lands in your hand or the board. So I have Seek the Horizon, and for that, for 4, search the library for up to 3 basic land cards, reveal them, put them in your hand, and shuffle. Just a good way to get some lands in your hand for borborygmos. Cultivate for 3, search the library for 2 basics, reveal them, put 1 on the battlefield, 1 in your hand. Again, landfall triggers, get you more land on the board, and gives you land in your hand for borborygmos. Other land search I have is Kodama's Reach. Super handy card. For 3, search your library for 2 basics, put 1 on the battlefield tapped, then put 1 into your hand, then shuffle. Literally just cultivate, but looks cooler. Then we have kind of the weirder ones, I would say. So Dance of the Tumbleweeds for 2, but you can pay its spree cost for an extra 1, or you can do the extra 3 to create the beast, but I'll most likely never do that. So what spree means is you can pay the additional multiple times, so you have to pay this 1 cost, or this 2 cost, plus an additional 1 per times you want to do it. So if I have 8 land, I pay 2 of them, that leaves me 6, tap 6 more times, I search for 6 lands. Super handy just to get more lands on the battlefield. I have Explore, play an additional land this turn, draw a card. Very simple, super quick way to get more land. Probably one of my favorite land searches is Nylea's Intervention for X and 2 green. You choose one of them. You can either do damage to a flyer, which is really good in this deck because it struggles with flyers, or you can search your library for X land cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand. So again, if you have 8 lands, you tap 2 green, X equals 6, search 6 lands. Super helpful for borborygmos. Most of the time that card gets countered because it's just so good. Couple removal cards. I have Broken Bond, destroy target artifact or enchantment. You play an additional land. Super helpful. Really good for a 2-drop, I think. Get rid of that Swiftfoot Boots that's protecting someone else's commander, an enchantment that they slapped on borborygmos, make him lose abilities, and you get a free land drop. So super helpful. Over the Edge for 2. Destroy your artifact or enchantment. Again, the Swiftfoot Boots or whatever shutting you down at the time. Or you can have target creature explores, then it explores again. Super handy. Get you land in your hand, or it makes your creatures bigger. So either way, I think that's a win-win in a situation. Couple of... Oh, I have one more removal spell. So, Pest Infestation for XX and a green. If it'll focus. Destroy up to X target artifacts and or enchantments. Create twice X. 1 black, green, and pest. This is literally just for protection and to destroy artifacts and enchantments. Literally nothing else. Just protection. A couple of land draw card, or a couple draw power cards I have. I have Faithless Looting. Stupid good card. Draw 2, discard 2. And when you're going to be searching all those lands every single time, you're just going to have things to discard all the time. Tormenting Voice. Pay 2, discard a card, draw 2. Super handy, get you a couple cards in there. Now, a little bit weirder cards here. Splendid Reclamation, return all land cards from graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This is strictly only to trigger those landfall cards, or for cards like the... I forgot the name of the card. That combo that we were talking about earlier, if I can find it. Barrel Down Sokuzen and the Flask. Get all those on land, call one thing, bring everything to your hand, drop a bunch. World Soul Rage, this is one of my favorite cards in this deck. Pay X, green and a red. Deals X damage to any target. Put X lands from your hand and or graveyard on the battlefield tapped. So if you have a bunch of lands in your graveyard, you can pull them back and you get to do damage all at the same time. Super handy card. Especially when you're trying to go for that game ending. A couple enchantments that I have for the deck. Again, I apologize if this is super quick. It's the first time I'm doing this type of video, so I have Case of the Locked House. You can play additional lands, mainly in here for that. Get those extra lands. When you control 7 or more, it becomes solved, so you can look at the top card of your library anytime, play lands and cast creatures and enchantment spells from the top of it. Super handy to get those like Poison Dart Frogs and everything out and your land. More land related stuff, of course. Druid class, play, if it'll focus, Druid class for 2. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, you gain life. Pay 2 and a green. You can play an additional land and pay 4 and a green, which you never probably really do. When it becomes level 3, target land you control becomes a creature equal to the number of lands you control, and it's still a land. Super good, mainly for that second ability and first ability. Super handy life grab and additional land. Then we have Mana Flare for 2 and a red. Enchantment, whenever a player taps a land, they add an additional. Tap a mountain, you get an extra mountain. It's super handy to bring borborygmos out super quick. I have Rites of the Flourishing for 3. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player can draw an extra card, so that gives you extra lands, and each player can play an additional land. So most of the time, my opponent doesn't really flourish off of that. That extra card is probably the best they got, but I'm always going to have land in my hand all the time, so I could play an additional land every turn. Super helpful. Roaring Earth, whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you can put a 1/1 counter on target creature or vehicle, and you can channel it, which again you'll never really do. Pay X, 2 green, discard it, put X1 counters on target land. It becomes a 0/0 green spirit creature. With haste, it's still a land, and this enchantment's only for 2, which it blows my mind that it can be put in landfall decks and it just does so much for you. The last enchantment I have is Bear Umbra for 2 and 2 green. Enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +2/+2 and has whenever this creature attacks, untap all lands you control. And it also has totem armor. This is super handy for when like I go really deep for like a big spell and I need more land. Swing with this, get more for like my sorceries and instants. Now for my creatures, few basic ones that I think most of the community knows. Land of War Elves taps for 1, Elvish Mystic taps for 1, and Land of War Tribe taps for 3. Super good turn 1 to turn 3 creatures. They just give me extra land to play creatures and big spells. That's about all their use is for. Deathbloom Gardener, terrific blocker because of Death Touch, and it adds me 1 mana of any color I need. Short on green, add green. Short on red, add red. Plus, you have a big Oonga Boonga creature, you're swinging on blocking with a 1/1 Death Touch. There's no doubt about it. Lotus Cobra for 2 has landfall whenever land enters the battlefield under your control. Add 1 mana of any color for 2/1 for a 2-drop. Again, this card's super good for like when we return all those lands from the graveyard to the battlefield. I'm just adding a bunch of land and I get to do whatever I want with it. Another creature, Poison Dart Frog, 1/1 for 2, has reach, can block those flyers that I can't really defend against. Taps for any color, pay 2 and give a Death Touch, kill any flyer I need. Super, I honestly think he's one of the most broken 2-drops in the game, personally. I don't really see him a lot, which is surprising, because he's a stupid good card. Somber Wall Sage, 0/1, taps for 3, only to cast creatures. This card strictly in here really only bring on board borborygmos because he's so expensive. Just add 3 for a 3-drop, super good, I think. Rada, Era of the Keld, 2/2 for 2. Swings, you add 2 red, or you can tap it for green. Really good mana dork type card. Mina and Den Wildborn, probably one of the MVPs of this deck, if I'm being honest. You can play an additional land on each of your turns, plus you can pay 2 and return a land, and target creature gets trampled on a turn. This will really help for our big creatures, like our pests and stuff. If we create an XX creature, we can swing at them, get them through. But most importantly, they give us those land for borborygmos. Super handy. Courser Crew Fix, 3-drop for a 2/4. Play with the top card revealed. You can play lands from your library, from the top of your library. Whenever land enters, you gain life. Literally just life gain, and gives me lands. It's only used really, and it's a decent blocker. It's a 2/4, so probably one of the newer cards that I put in here. Titiana's Voice of Gaia. Whenever one or more land cards put into the graveyard from anywhere, gain 2 life, and then it has a transform ability, but I do not have the other card, so it can't transform, and it's just the picture part. This is in there, 3/4 with reach, stupid good blocker. It helps borborygmos out a lot. If I have borborygmos out and I'm dumping those lands in the graveyard, I'm gaining 2 life every single time I do that, so super handy to get me in the lead there. See, we have Tireless Tracker for 3 and a 3/2 landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield, investigate. So you create a clue token, pay 2, sacrifice it, draw a card, and whenever you sacrifice it, count a clue token, you put a 1/1 counter on Tireless Tracker. It's in here for card draw. It's strictly in here just for that card draw. I might add something in that does something with the clues more, but I'm not sure yet. Probably not, but it's just in there for the extra card draw. Jade Light Spelunker, pay X and a green for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, it explores X times. To have it explore, reveal the top card of your library, put that card in your hand if it's a land, otherwise put a counter on him. So basically the general idea of this, pay a bunch of land and hopefully get a bunch of land in your hand at the same time. If he gets bigger, cool. If not, it doesn't really matter because you were just searching for land. If he gets bigger, you got a big blocker. Now, two cards that aren't technically necessary for this deck, in my opinion, but I like having them in here just in case. Anger and Brawn, both 3 colorless and 1 of their respective color. Brawn's a 3/3 when it's in the graveyard, and I control a forest, all creatures have trample. On my field, Anger, if I control a mountain, everything has haste. This is just in there for like my big beat sticks, because they don't have haste or trample. So get them in the graveyard, give them haste and trample. Example of big hasty creature, Asha's Soul of the Wild. Star power, its power and toughness equals the number of lands you control. Non-token creatures you control are forests, so this gives me more land and gives me a big creature. So again, Anger and Brawn give it trample and haste. I can swing with it immediately, just swinging with it like a 15/15 if I have it that much. I have Akum Hellkite, 4/4 flyer for 6. Whenever land enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to a creature or player. If that land is a mountain, it deals 2 damage to that target instead. Super good. Landfall, triggering a bunch of land, bringing out 15 land at a time, doing a bunch of damage with that, plus it's a flyer, so can't go wrong with a good flyer. I have Rampaging Balos, 6/6 with trample. Whenever land enters, creates 4/4 beasts. Super helpful for getting blockers and decently big creatures. One of the MVPs of the deck, I think, Tunneling Geode for 3. It's a 3/2 landfall. Whenever land enters, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So bringing out a bunch of land, doing a bunch of damage, pretty much sums it up. Plus, put the exoskeleton on it, you can kill everybody at the same time. Omnath, Locus of Rage, 5/5 for 7. Landfall, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 5/5 red and green elemental creature token. Whenever it or another elemental you control dies, it deals 3 damage to any target. Super helpful card, it gives you really big blockers and damage at the same time. So kind of a win-win, I think. Kind of a late game. If I can cheat him out real quick, super helpful. Now, you can't have a land deck without Scoot Swarm. Honestly, like, he creates a bunch of tokens, and if you have more than 6 or more lands, he creates a token of himself. So you play him, play another land, you have 6, you create an exact copy, you create a token, and then those tokens will create more tokens, and so on and so forth. You just have infinite amount of possibilities with Scoot Swarm, I think. And if you're running land deck and you don't have Scoot Swarm, I strongly recommend getting Scoot Swarm. Stupid broken card, I think. Cultivator Colossus is another card that I think every green deck that's running super heavy lands needs to run. You can keep repeating the process. When he enters the battlefield, you put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. If you do, draw a card and repeat this process. So basically all this is doing is just fueling him. And again, if I have anger in the graveyard, I'm swinging with like a 20/20 trample. Super, super heavy card. Has won me so many games. Now, for one of my favorite combo pieces, and to wrap this all up, I have Torbrin, Thane of Redvale, and Softlim Mayhem Dominus. So Torbin, less complicated of the two. If a red source you control would deal damage, it deals that much damage plus 2 instead. So borborygmos, dealing 3 damage, he'll do 5 instead. Super helpful. Most of the damage is coming from this. But Softlim is actually super, super good. Give her indestructible by paying 1 and 2 for XA mana. So if you don't know, with the color, it means 1 and 2 reds, or you can pay 1 and 4 life. If a source you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent, it deals double that damage instead. So borborygmos, dropping 3, this is making it 6, this is adding 2 to it every time. So I'm doing so much damage with these 3. But yeah, that is my borborygmos deck. I will probably be switching some cards in the future, but that's just kind of a rough idea of what I have right now. It's not even CEDH, I don't think, but it's super high EDH though. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you for listening to my video. Have a good one.